When you picture the Mongol Empire, you probably imagine a disorganized, screaming horde of guys on ponies. It's a convenient image, makes them seem like a natural disaster rather than what they actually were, a terrifyingly efficient corporation of conquest. Before a man named Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan, decided to get everyone organized, the Eurasian steppe was a chaotic mess of warring tribes. He didn't just unite them, he restructured their entire society with the single-minded goal of expansion. They weren't a flood, they were a meticulously engineered tidal wave. And they had a great benefits package if you survived the recruitment process. The secret to Mongol success wasn't just horsemanship, it was revolutionary human resources. Genghis Khan shattered old tribal loyalties, reorganizing his army into decimal units, groups of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, or a tumen. Your loyalty was to your unit commander, not your cousin. Promotions were based entirely on merit, which was a shocking concept for a world run by inherited titles and incompetent nephews. This created a fanatically loyal and ruthlessly competent officer corps, led by geniuses like Subutai and Jebe, who could operate independently across continents. It was less an army and more a perfectly calibrated continent-sized machine for breaking other armies. Mongol foreign policy was refreshingly simple. When they arrived at a city, they sent an envoy with a clear message: surrender unconditionally and you'll be spared. Probably. Resist and you will be comprehensively erased from existence. This wasn't a bluff. At Nishapur, after the governor killed a Mongol envoy, the city was so thoroughly annihilated that Genghis Khan's daughter, who was married to the slain envoy, allegedly requested that not even the cats and dogs be left alive. They would then build pyramids out of the skulls of the deceased, which is, to be fair, an extremely effective way of discouraging neighborhood rebellions. It was psychological warfare at its most literal and gruesome. One of their favorite party tricks was the feigned retreat. It's an old nomadic tactic, but the Mongols turned it into a high art form. They would engage a larger, heavier army, pretend to be routed, and flee in apparent chaos. European knights, encased in metal and ego, would invariably give chase, thinking they'd won. They'd abandon their tight formations, galloping gleefully after the fleeing Mongols for miles. Just when the pursuing army was exhausted and hopelessly strung out, the Mongols would turn. Fresh horsemen would appear on the flanks, and the trap would spring. At the Kalka River in 1223, they used this to utterly annihilate a combined force of Kievan Rus princes who thought they were chasing a defeated rabble. The Mongols never invaded blind. Their campaigns were preceded by years of meticulous intelligence gathering. They operated a vast network of spies, merchants, and scouts called the Nerj, who would map out everything. They knew where the rivers were, where the best grazing lands were for their horses, and, most importantly, they knew the political climate of their targets. They were masters at exploiting internal divisions, promising one local prince power if he'd betray another. So when the main army finally arrived, they weren't just showing up to a fight, they were showing up with a step-by-step guide on how to dismantle their enemy's entire society. They had your kingdom's Wikipedia page memorized before you even knew they were coming. For a nomadic people, the Mongols got terrifyingly good at siege warfare suspiciously quickly. How? Simple. They outsourced. When they conquered a territory known for its engineering prowess, like northern China or Persia, they didn't just kill all the smart people. They rounded up the engineers, artisans, and siege experts and convinced them to join the team. Suddenly, this horse-based army was showing up with enormous trebuchets, sophisticated catapults, and even early gunpowder weapons. At the Siege of Baghdad in 1258, they had a whole corps of Chinese engineers directing the construction of siege engines. They were an unstoppable force of nature that also happened to have a world-class engineering department. An empire the size of Africa is useless if you can't control it. Enter the Yam, the most impressive communications network on Earth until the telegraph. It was a system of relay stations, strategically placed about 25 to 30 miles apart across the entire empire. A messenger carrying an imperial decree could ride at full gallop to a station, get a fresh horse, food, and rest, and be on his way in minutes. This meant a message from the Khan could travel over 100 miles a day, an absolutely blistering pace for the era. It allowed for unparalleled command and control, letting generals coordinate attacks across thousands of miles. Marco Polo was completely blown away by it, and for good reason. It was the logistical backbone of their entire operation. The Mongol invasion of Europe in 1241 was less of a war and more of a clinic on how to humiliate armored knights. General Subutai, a man who probably thought in maps, didn't just send one army. He orchestrated a massive, multi-pronged invasion with 5 separate armies that moved in perfect concert, without radios. While one force pinned down armies in Poland, his main force looped south to smash the Hungarians. At the Battle of Mohi, the Mongols used a smokescreen, a pontoon bridge, and their classic flanking maneuvers to trap and obliterate a massive Hungarian army. The European concept of a battle was 2 big lumps of metal smashing into each other. The Mongols were playing 3-dimensional chess while their opponents were still trying to figure out how the horsey moves. Just when you thought they couldn't get any more terrifying, we have to talk about the Siege of Kaffa in 1346. The Mongol army besieging this Genoese trading post on the Black Sea was suffering from an outbreak of the Black Death. A truly innovative commander would see this as a problem. The Mongols saw it as an opportunity. According to accounts, they started loading plague-infected corpses onto their catapults and lobbing them over the city walls. It's one of history's earliest and most horrifying examples of biological warfare. While its direct role in spreading the plague to Europe is debated by historians, you have to admit it's a bold strategy. Talk about a hostile takeover. Here's the great irony. After conducting the most brutal and efficient conquests the world had ever seen, the Mongols established a period of unprecedented peace and stability called the Pax Mongolica. Suddenly, the Silk Road, which had been a patchwork of dangerous territories, became so safe that, as the saying went, a maiden carrying a nugget of gold on her head could wander from one end of the empire to the other without fear. They policed the roads, established a single system of weights and measures, and encouraged trade and communication. It was peace through overwhelming intimidation. The world was quiet because everyone had seen what happened to the people who were loud. So, the Mongols, not a mindless horde, but a testament to what humanity can achieve when it gets really, really organized about the process of violence. They combined social engineering, meritocracy, psychological terror, logistical genius, and technological adaptation into a single, unstoppable system. They weren't just great at fighting, they were great at the entire business of war, from the intelligence gathering phase to the post-conquest management. They demonstrated that the most devastating force on Earth isn't chaos, it's order, ruthlessly applied. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!